Hi guys, RT here. So for this video is the tier list for priority of the R2 Esper. Because I received like the comments under the video or like PMs, mostly people are asking like who should I wish in my club shop, or who should I pull, or who should I put them inside my Rezo pool, or which Esper should I hope I get for R2, right? I received mostly for all of this, so I think it's a good thing to actually make a video to explain or give some information about my thoughts on the Esper R2. So we'll be looking at how do we judge the tier list, right? So first thing, the highest tier list is the highest priority, which is the R2 meta, which means if this Esper reach to R2, and then he will be meta in her own content. So for example, like this tier list will compile in PvP and PvE as well. So if the Esper's R2 will be strong in PvE or it will be meta in PvP, then it will be in this tier. So I won't be considering only for a certain content like PvE or PvP. I will consider them, their R2 effect, is it a game-changing thing in their own kit. So I won't be considering, oh, is this R2 is going to affect for this content, is this R2 going to affect for that content. I won't be going through that. I'll just go through their own specific kit in their skill, and is it good to have for their R2. I won't be considering any kind of PvE or PvP content as well, okay? So let's go. The first one, Eliane. Eliane's R2 will give her 100% chance to ignore defense when she attack on the enemy with sleep, and also have a slight chance to ignore some defense when enemy without sleep. So I would say Eliane's R2 effect is like good to have. It won't be waste when you get her resonance, when you get her from wish pool, like it won't be waste. But is it something to you get her from your resonant pool, or is it something for you to get from your club sticker? I don't think so, right? So I think it's naturally let Eliane naturally come to your account is the best thing, because you don't really want to actively get Eliane's R2, but it's something good to have. This is something bonus effect, which is good. Alright, so the next one, Narmer. So Narmer's R2 will increase the stack amount to 12, so which means you're gonna get a higher damage boost from the stack because you have higher ceiling stack now. And when you cast S3, you're gonna get 2 stack back. So is it really a game-changing resonance for Narmer? I don't really think so. So I will put Narmer R2 at not good, right? When you get Narmer R2, is it gonna make his role changes or like anything changes? I don't really think so. So I will put him at not good. So let's take a look at JJ. Jiang Jiu Li's R2 effect will make him kill the enemy in his demon mode, and the enemy who die in his demon mode will not be revived, and he also absorb 30% of the target's attack to himself. I think this is very strong for Jiang Jiu Li. When R2, he's gonna counter Cecilia because it will not make Cecilia revive the teammate, and 30% of the Esper's attack will absorb to JJ, so JJ will be even stronger and even more painful in his demon mode and his normal mode as well. So I think it's definitely a meta for his R2, and it will be very strong. Then for the next one is Fatum Sister. S2, max cooldown increased by 2 turns, but it can select a fallen ally and basically revive them, right? And heal them by 1% of the max HP. But if the target is not fallen, which means she's not gonna revive, then the cooldown reduced by 2 turns. So technically, you're gonna get a revive kit in her R2. So I would say Fatum is a good to have. Does she really need the revive kit? I don't really think so, but it's something good to have. It's something bonus to her. For Everett's R2 effect is he also gains the damage mitigation effect from his own S3. So I think it is something good to have, but not really urgent to get with. Okay, Anna. Anna's R2 is very strong. When you get R2, she'll be crazily, insanely strong, because last time when he is R0, when you hit Anna will counter attack. But when you hit other teammate now, as long as Anna have the rainbow shield, she will also counter attack to the attacker 1 time. So this is very strong. It's no longer just counter attack. When you hit her, it's also protecting the whole team as well. So I would say Anna R2, definitely a meta. Then for Ollie's R2 effect is his passive will give the invincibility buff and recover buff extend from 1 turn to 2 turn. So it's something very good for protective team in PvP and PvE as well. So I would say it's something good to have, but not necessary to rush for it. Okay, then for Gabrielle. Gabrielle's R2 makes her kit have extra speed, extra damage based on her speed. So I think this is something good to have, but not necessary to rush for it. Then Sally's R2 makes her S2 have also heals effect, not just redistribute the HP around all her ally, it also heals the ally as well. So I think this is a very good thing to actually go for. For Sally, is like, get it, it won't really change her kit that much, but I think not just redistribute the HP around the whole ally and also heals them is a very big thing to deal with. So I think Sally is worth for the R2, but it won't really make her meta because Sally's meta is at R6. But when Sally's reached to R2, you will see a very big difference in terms of healing effect. So for Hilda's R2 effect is the S3. When enemy receive poison, and Hilda will inflict another poison once per turn. So it's like, if you're gonna deal 1 stack of poison, now she's gonna deal 2 stack of poison, something like this. So it's good to have, but not really something you should chase for. So for Abigail R2 is a bit tricky here because the S2 effect also dispels all debuff from Abigail. So this I would say is a good thing. But I saw a lot of other players also mention that this will get easily countered in PvP situation. For example, if enemy brought a Triki and your Abigail casts R2 effect and it dispel her own debuff, right? Then Abigail will get stunned by Triki's passive. So it becomes a two-sided sword. It's like, it's a good thing to dispel her debuff, but it will also triggers the Triki's passive as well. So I would say Abigail R2 is not good because of the dispel thing, and most of the time you don't really need the dispel kit on her own S2 effect because it only dispel herself, it don't really dispel the whole team. So I would say Abigail's R2 is not good. Okay, so for Gaius, R2 effect is pretty good because when he's in human form, all his ally will get another accuracy plus 20%, and when he's in God King mode, all allies will get a crit rate plus 20% for it. So I think this is a good thing to have because it really makes your equipment stats requirement to be lower. You can lower down accuracy or maybe lower down crit rate, depends on your playstyle of your Gaius as well. So I would say Gaius R2 is very strong. It's like, get it. Is it gonna make him like be a meta Esper? I don't think the R2 really make Gaius to be meta stage, but his R2 definitely is something worth to go for, and actively go for. Gaius passive isn't a bad thing as well. Then for Leora's R2 makes her S3 crit rate undispellable. Should I say it will always land, but is it necessary to have it? I don't really think so. Like, it don't change anything in her kit. The crit rate is gonna land anyway, and you just cannot resist. So and the crit rate down isn't something a big deal. So I would say Leora's R2 effect is not good. Then for Zora's R2 effect, your Galactic Rush inflicts defense down as well, and Galactic Rush is her S3. So her S3 now not just dealing AoE damage, it also deals AoE buff blocker and defend down, which is something good for Zora. So I would say Zora's kit R2 effect is something good to have. And now is Donar. Donar R2 effect makes his passive when the Thunder Blessing, which is his passive, the stack thing, which 5 stack, which is the max stack, he will instantly get a turn. I think this is a very important R2 effect for him because you can build your Donar very slow, and as long as enemy hit your Donars 5 times, and then your Donar will instantly get 1 turn. So your Donar doesn't require any speed at all because of his R2 effect. So I would say Donar really needs to like get it or even meta tier for Donar's R2 effect. Like without Donar's R2 effect, I don't think Donar is that good. But when Donar have his R2 effect, everything changes for his kit. You can build Donar very slow. You can build him full DPS and very slow. As long as you get 5 hit, then you just dupe them. So R2 is where Donar straight away shines and straight away is able to perform in his own content. So next is Camille. Camille's R2 effect deals extra damage to enemy with bleed, and the extra damage is 50% of the damage, 50% of the attack, which is something good to have. It won't really change her kit that much, but the bonus DPS is really good to have, and Camille is free to play as per, so definitely go for it. Okay, now Norah's R2 effect is when she inflicted with AP down, it will nullify the attack and attack everyone with the Halcon Harmonic without any cost. So I would say this is a very good thing to have, but it won't really use the passive that often, I would say. So I would say it's good to have, but not necessary to something for you to chase for. Then for Nuxi's R2 effect is very strong because as long when she has the Paper Talisman effect, she will steal one buff first from the target first. So even though if you have immunity on your Esper, she have the chance to actually steal the immunity away and inflict the AP down from her kit. So I would say this R2 effect is definitely meta, and it will be very strong in her kit as well. Then for Cang Ji's R2 effect is instead of mirroring the HP's percentage of the target, you actually swap the HP, which is a lot better because, so let's say your ally have 1% HP left and the enemy have 100%. If you mirror, which means you're gonna heal back your ally's HP from 1% to 100% because you mirror the target's HP. But when R2 effect of Cang Ji, you're gonna swap the HP, so your 1% become 100% and the enemy's HP from 100% change to 1%. And this HP swapping thing haven't calculated the damage yet, which means from his S3 kit would deal another damage after swapping, so which is very strong, and it's definitely his meta. Well, as long as Cang Ji reach R2, then Cang Ji is in his meta content already. Then for Yuhimme's R2 effect actually just ruined her kit, so I will straight away put Yuhimme at not good. Alright, then for Ahmed's R2 effect, it makes Ahmed's passive stack gains another speed buff plus 2 per stack. And you have max stack of 15 stacks, so which means you're gonna have a maximum plus 30 raw speed from Ahmed's passive healing, which is very amazing to have. So I would say Ahmed is something you can actually actively get for go for it, but it won't really make him meta, but it's very good to get it. Then for Ashley, R2 effect will make her S3 grants shield for all allies for 1 turn, and the shield strength is based on Ashley's attack by 100%, which is very good to have, but isn't something you should actively go for it as well. Then for Tang Xuan's R2 effect, which Tang Xuan have the chance of 20% chance of launching a pursuit attack, which is something good to have as well because Monkey King now is able to keep bonking. If your RNG is good, you can like continuously cast S1 maybe 3 to 4 times in a row if you keep hitting the 20%. So it's something good to have, but I don't think it's worth actively chasing for the R2 for it. Just let it naturally come. Then for Liam, R2 effect makes his attack ignore 30% of the target's defense, which is very good, and he have a synergy with Valeria. So if Valeria receive the Vigilant buff, the basic ability damage dealt by Liam and Valeria plus 30% for 3/3. So I think the R2 effect for Liam is like 2 effect, which is you ignore the enemy's defense by 30%, and if you buff Valeria, it have bonus damage as well. But let's take away Valeria in the case, so sometimes you don't build Valeria with him, right? The fact that he is so strong in his own kit as well, and making him actually can ignore enemy defense, I think he definitely worth the get it. It is worth actively get Liam's R2 effect because his kit is very strong, and with the ignoring defense make him even stronger, and if you are paired with Valeria, his damage go even higher. So I would say it is definitely worth it. Then for Louis' R2 effect makes his S2, which is the punching thing which gains him crit rate up, also have a new effect which dispels all buff from the target. So it's a good thing to have because if you actually use Louis, you use S2 to buff yourself with crit rate up, right? But no longer just that, you also clean away the enemy's buff. So if enemy have on immunity or on defense up, then with this resonance, it actually clear away the buff and makes Louis able to one-shot them. So I would say Louis' R2 effect is good to have in his kit, but not necessary to actively go for it. Then for Valeria's R2 is very strong because power reserve is something very good to share. When she is in R0, the power reserve buff it only gives for herself to protect herself, but when she is at R0, she is able to share the power reserve buff to the whole team. And let's say the power reserve applies to the whole team and then enemy casts an AoE damage, and then Valeria straight away proc all the power reserve. Valeria is able to straight away get back 1 turn while reducing the whole team's damage taken by 50%. So I would say Valeria's R2 is really strong for her kit, and especially if you want to pair Valeria and Liam together, is a very good combo and a very good reso to actually chase for it as well. Okay, then for R2 effect of Intisar is very strong because when without stealth mode, she launched a pursuit attack with transmit virus. Then what is transmit virus? Which is, if she is out of stealth mode, let's say you're 1v1 with someone and she's not on stealth mode anymore, which means she'll get hit, right? And when she get hit and then you avatar, if you avatar or you actively cast S1, you're gonna S1 and then you pursuit with a S3 attack, which is amazingly good, and I think she deserves a get it, or maybe even R2 meta, but I would say Intisar is worth the resonance for her for R2 effect. It really changed her kit a lot. It makes her very strong after reaching R2, but is she gonna be a meta Esper? From my point of view, I don't really think so, but it's definitely very worth to actually try to get her reso to R2. Then for Ling, Ling's R2 effect makes totally change his kit because the R2 effect able to let him cool down his S3 effect per crit. So and his S2 actually hit 5 times, which means if you crit 5 times, you're gonna reduce the cooldown of your S3 5 turn, which means you're gonna get back the technically you're gonna get back your S3 effect. So you can cast S3, S2 to recover back S3, and you cast S3 again. So within his kit himself, I would say his kit is definitely be a meta for him to actually work as a very strong Esper. Like before R0 Ling, before R2 Ling, and after R2 Ling is a different Esper. So I would say Ling is definitely worth the R2 effect if you really love to play Ling. Then for Xuan Pin's R2 effect, which takes away the stun effect from her S2 damage, because the S2, the annoying part for Xuan is when she casts S2 which AP push your Esper 100%, then after that the Esper will get stunned unless your Esper is on immunity. But if you have Xuan Pin R2, you don't have to worry about the stun. It's basically become an Abigail's S3 which can 100% AP push with a cannon buff, and then it no longer stun your Esper. There's no longer a negative effect or downside effect for your Esper. So I would say Xuan Pin's R2 is definitely a meta changing. Okay, then for Mateo's R2 effect, which is if enemy has spark, Mateo's crit rate is on 100%. And keep note, this Mateo crit rate 100%, it doesn't just apply on the fire punch damage, it applies on all his damage. Which means as long as enemy on spark, Mateo doesn't need crit rate at all. So I would say Mateo R2 will straight away change his whole kit because you no longer need to build crit rate on Mateo, you just need to full crit damage or full attack. You don't even need to bother crit rate stats at all. So I would say definitely worth the resonance, and after R2 and before R2 is a total different Esper, and he'll be a meta, I would say. Then for Brewster, R2 effect makes him get 3 bullet at the start of the combat, and it also affects at wave content. So I would say Brewster definitely worth the R2, and with Brewster's R2 effect, Brewster definitely worth the meta tier as well. And there's a lot of content that actually needs Brewster to be R2. For example, if you want to speed cliff some content, you definitely a Brewster's R2 effect definitely will be in your consideration as well. Then for Lucas' R2 effect, if the target AP is 0, it inflicts stun, which is something good to have, but it's not necessary to rush for it as well. And Lucas is free to play Esper, so you can definitely get his resonance for free. Then for Yun Chuan's R2 is definitely a game changer, a meta thing to actually change his kit, because the passive effect from last time, if you are below R2, you only assist your dog when you hit the enemy who have the third eye seal. But the condition of just himself hitting the enemy with third eye seal, change into anyone who hits the enemy with third eye seal, Yun Chuan will assist with a dot effect. That's why everyone is like crazy chasing for Yun Chuan's R2 effect, and I would say Yun Chuan is definitely worth the Razor chase, and he'll be a meta. Then for Triki's resonance, a S3 effect inflicts speed down on the target for 2 turns. It's something good to have, but not really a game changing. It don't really change his kit that much, so I would say Triki is on a good tier to have, but not really that game changing. Then for Cecilia's R2 effect is totally game changing because the one that got revived by Cecilia, Cecilia will reset their cooldown as well. So for example, if your Esper died in the Cecilia team, and then the Esper CD is totally maxed out already, which even though after revive you can only cast S1, is like useless, right? But with Cecilia R2 effect, Cecilia revive them, their CD will get refreshed so they can instantly cast S3 or S2, anything else will do. So I would say Cecilia will definitely worth the meta. And for Clara R2 effect will extend the immunity by 2 turns. This is a very good thing, very big change as well, even though you will think that, oh, the immunity just extend by 1 turn, but you will know that actually immunity extend by 1 turn is a very big deal. But I would actually actively chase for Clara's R2, so I would say Clara's R2 is good to have. It is good to like naturally gain the R2, but I don't think it's worth to actually actively chase for the Clara's resonance. Then for Tolan's R2 effect, when he dies, then it will extend all enemy ability cooldown by 1 turn, and it won't miss and cannot be resist, which means if they are not on immunity and when Tolan die, enemies CD extend by 1 turn, which is a very big deal because a 1 turn actually might save your whole team. So I would say Tolan's R2 effect is on meta tier. Then for Taver's R2, Taver's attack will always land a critical hit, which means your Taver doesn't need to build crit rate anymore. And I think this is a very big deal because you can save a lot of crit rate stats to the crit damage stats, or even though go for the attack stat. And you will see the difference of R2 Taver damage and R0 Taver damage. There's a very big difference in terms of stats. So I would say R2 Taver is definitely worth the reso, and it will definitely be a meta as well. Then for Ginny R2, which makes her S2 have an extra turn effect, so you can cast S2 and straight away go into S3. You no longer need to wait a whole turn until her turn to actually cast the S3. So I think this is definitely worth the resonance change because it changed her kit a lot. You need the R2 effect to make her kit work as well. So I would think maybe, even though, yeah, I would say it's R2 meta because with R2 and without R2 is a totally different Esper for Genie, so I would put a higher tier. Then for height, R2 effect make his passive, which is the Breath of the Deep stack, won't be cleared in subsequent round, which is a very good thing when we used to have KO that is round base or a wave base. You can keep the stack for the next one, so which is a very good one. But after the KO changes, I don't really think, or I don't really see any places need this kind of R2 effect, so I would say height R2 effect is totally a waste. Then for JV's R2 effect, which increased the number of taking the splash damage increased to 3, I don't really think it really changed that much because the splash thing only changed from 2 splash to 3 splash, which is 1 more target hit, and it's not gonna be like an AoE damage thing, right? So I don't think it's really worth the resonance, so I would say not good. Then Raven's R2 effect kit is also very strong because your passive is gonna deal as long as someone attack on the enemy without buff, and Raven's S2 effect with the passive will go into cooldown, and then when you cast S3, it will instantly reset the cooldown, so you can passive attack, then S3, then it resets your passive and your passive damage again. So it's definitely a meta change for Raven's kit, and it's totally worth the chase. Then for Mavis R2 effect, if at least 3 teammates have Graveless at the start of Mavis' turn, her S3 ability cooldown by 1 turn, which is it's something good to have in her kit because it makes her S3 rotate faster. But I don't really think it's necessary to chase for Mavis R2 effect, so I would say Mavis R2 effect is on a good tier. Good to have tier. If it comes naturally, it's good. Then for Lian's R2 effect makes her kit very strong because as long as the bubble pops or the bubble ends, then Lian will able to get another extra turn, and if you build lane on Ocean Wave, you can even instantly cast S3 again and just keep repeating. So I would say definitely worth the meta tier for R2. Okay, then the next one is Biotina R2 effect, which can make her passive that dispel target from 1 into 2. So it's something good to have, but it don't really change anything good, right? So I would say good, but not really a must thing to actually chase for it. And actually Biotina is used at very less content, so yeah. Then for Ophelia, R2 effect is when attacking using S2, and if enemy have 3 or more debuff, then the S3 effect will reduce by 1 turn. It is something good to have, but not necessary to chase for it as well. Then for Senya here, the S2 buff from attack up, speed up from 2 turns extend to 3 turns, which is very good because you extend the turn by, which will make everything rotation a lot more better. So I would say it's totally good to have Senya R2. Then for TA R2 effect is the S1 is able to AP push your team as well. So I think it's definitely a very strong reso, and you definitely want to get it as well. Then for Yamato S2 effect, there's a passive whenever he grant a buff, the target's defense will increase as well. We have no idea this is a base defense or overall defense for now, but I would say it's a good to have, not really something you should chase for. Then for Ilias R2 effect, his S2 is able to extend the ability cooldown per hit, and his S2 is actually hitting 3 times, so it's able to extend 3 times of the ability cooldown of the target. So I would say Ilias R2 is definitely something you should go for. It's not like really must to go, but it is very strong to have it actually. Then for Jin Qiu's R2 effect, the Punish Evil buff and also the Intimidate buff is able to share to his teammate, but because of we can't really find a team comp that actually synergy with him very well at the moment, so I would say it's actually good to have. His R2 effect is actually good to have, but not really game changing at the moment. Then for Embla, the R2 effect is able to make the Corrupted Sick explosion to deal AoE damage as well. So I would say Embla is definitely a R2 meta tier, and definitely go for R2 Embla as soon as possible. And for Pharah R2, after taking a hit, if Pharah have synergy and if the attacker is flow, for example like TA is a speed leader, and usually people build TA very fast, and Pharah is the one that is able to counter TA, because when you try to use S3, Pharah is able to AP push herself to 50% AP boost. So it's definitely very good, and I would definitely say get her R2. Then for Archibald's R2 effects is when he crits and it reduces the target's max HP cap. It's something like Hyde's passive that able to reduce the enemy's HP cap, but I don't think that is really something that epic to have, so I would say it's good to have. Then for Jin Yu Yao's R2 effect increases her passive amount, the passive amount of AP boost she is able to get. So I would say it's good, but not really necessary to chase for. Then for Ethan's R2 effect is able to share his magic tune to the whole team. So I think it's very good, and this is totally meta. It enables your speed teams comp, so it's totally a meta, and you should actually rush for R2 Ethan's set. Then for Ife, R2 effects able to extend her poison attack down, extend to 3 turns. I don't think that's really a major changes as well, so I would say it's not good. For Una's R2 is able to cast attack up as well when he casts S3, and he rotates his skill very fast, so I definitely say Una's R2 is worth for chasing it, and definitely will be a meta as well. Then for Hayley's R2 effects, when Hayley dies, you grant Smelting Mastery to 2 random allies without Smelting Mastery. So for example, if Hayley's already casted the S3 2 times in the battle, and when Hayley dies, you apply 2 more Smelting Mastery to the team. So I think it's definitely something good to have, but it's not really necessary to chase for it as well. So I already go through all the legendary Esper, so I will take a look again. Is it the final decision? On second thought, I think Intisar worth for the R2 meta tier, because her R2 keys really makes her playstyle different, because S1 can straight away go into S3, which is a very big difference. So I think Intisar worth to going up for the meta. Then for the rest, For the good here, I don't think anything else really changes their playstyle a lot, right? Maybe Jin Qiu worth the R2, I think. Jin Qiu maybe worth the R2 because even though it's not really used in a lot of content now, but if getting R2 on Jin Qiu really makes the playstyle different as well, so I would say Jin Qiu's R2 worth to going up. Then the rest, I think the playstyle don't really changes much. Or maybe Monkey King's R2 can go up by 1 tier as well because of the pursuit. The pursuit thing really makes a difference as well. Then the rest here, the playstyle don't really change much, I think. So like the R2 meta here is the one that if you get it to R2, it's definitely a game changing or experience changing. Then for the tier 2 here is something you get, it will change your playstyle but not like major changes. Then this one here is like good to have. If you get it, it's something good. Then the not good here for me, if you get it to R2, I don't think there's much difference or don't even need the R2 effect as well. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys understand how the tier list goes. If you have any comment or if you any feedback as well, if you don't agree on any part, feel free to comment down and let me know, so I would actually know why would you think it doesn't suit in that tier. Right, hope you guys enjoyed the video and see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.